Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and we're reacting to San Francisco's 41-6. That's right, 41-6 NFL Divisional Round loss to the Seattle Seahawks. Wasn't fun. Quite frankly, it sucked. But sometimes it just has to not go in your favor. Sometimes, not the luck runs out, but sometimes you run into a team better than you, faster than you, stronger than you, healthier than you. And I think that is what I would bring to the table. I think everyone can agree that believing in the 49ers, who didn't have half of their defense, didn't have George Kittle, didn't have Brandon Ayuk. And look, there's no excuses here. But it was wishful thinking, believing they can actually go into Seattle and beat that defense in which they've scored, 16 points all year long or around there. The 49ers didn't really have a chance. They were playing with house money, nothing to lose, but not really a chance. The defense is banged up. The offense is hanging on by a thread. Pretty much Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey being the reason they're clinging to life, right? And they walked in to Seattle, and it felt like that from the very first play. A 95-yard kick return by the Seattle Seahawks. And what can you say? The Niners simply got beat by a better team that has been better than them all year long, been healthier than them all year long, and deserved to win. The Niners, yes, had big wins against Seattle week 1, narrowly escaped, beat the Rams on the road. Okay, you were a little healthier then. You beat the Colts, which now probably doesn't look as good in retrospect, but we all knew that despite how great last week felt in Philadelphia, knocking off the reigning Super Bowl champions, that this was going to end at some point. Whether it was now, whether it was next weekend, and if the world would have gone in their favor and every bounce would have gone their way, maybe in 3 weeks in the Super Bowl. But I think we all deep down knew, because of the injuries, because of how the offense looked, this team couldn't run the football all year. That this was the game it was probably going to end. Now, I predicted San Francisco to win simply based off good feeling. Why not? Why not us? Why not San Francisco? Because he beat Philadelphia on the road. I think it kind of goes to show that despite Philadelphia being the number 3 seed, that there are levels to this kind of thing. And sometimes great coaching and a rock star quarterback can overcome a defense in Philadelphia that has holes, an offense that can't move the football. That's not the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Sam Darnold wasn't great in this game by any means. He was not carried, but that defense and that running game does a lot of heavy lifting, and really he doesn't have to do much, and that's kudos to the Seattle Seahawks, and that's where I think I want to kind of give them credit. The Seattle Seahawks are a damn good football team. They earned this win, obviously, 41 points. That defense is flying around, wreaking havoc, and I think we all just thought that maybe San Francisco can just find a way. Shanahan in his bag, Purdy playing good football, just wow, maybe there's a way. But sometimes you hit a roadblock, and San Francisco, for a lot of reasons, hit a roadblock. They played a team that they did not have the ability, personnel-wise, to beat. And on top of that, Mike McDonald is maybe not record-wise, but this year especially, the last 2 games really feels like Kyle Shanahan's kryptonite. He just knows how to beat this offense, and not having, obviously, George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Ricky Pearsall and a functional running game certainly puts more pressure on the quarterback, and the offensive line was a disaster for a second straight game against that defensive front who blitzes the lowest rate in football, yet has like the most pressures in football. It was going to take a Herculean effort, but it was going to be a Herculean effort on top of an already necessary Herculean effort to beat this team. And so kudos to Seattle. They're a great team, great defense. The offense, that offensive line was opening up gaps all over the place against San Francisco's defense. And so that is there's no excuses here. He just got beat. And oddly enough, I think getting beat in the fashion San Francisco got beat almost feels better. It's easier to swallow. It's easier to sit back and say, well, yeah, what'd you expect? I mean, come on. At some point, the legs had to give, right? This team has had, broken ankles and torn Achilles and injured PCLs, and they're dragging rather bad personnel on to the next round of the playoffs. And at some point, the legs have to give out. And they did in a terrible fashion. I thought this game would be closer. I thought they'd at least score a touchdown, but that was not in the cards for a lot of reasons. And San Francisco had their opportunities. Now, I know the end score will say that's not the case, but I think we can all say maybe up until the end of the first half, they had a shot. They really had a shot. And we've seen this team overcome so much, whether it's the injuries or just simply take a game ago in Philadelphia, overcoming 2 Brock Purdy interceptions and losing George Kittle. They found a way. And that to me is how you describe this season. Perseverance, the ability to take a shot and keep going. And I want to dive into, and maybe this will make things more painful, because how do you relive a game like this? But I want to go back, rewind the clock, and discuss every missed opportunity San Francisco had. Because 41-6, I mean, you got your ass kicked, right? And it was ugly from the second drive of the second half on, if not really the opening kickoff. But let's talk about everything that went wrong in this game, because it's a lot. Now, I stopped counting in the third quarter, as I think most of us probably stopped watching in the third quarter. But let's start at the top. The game gets delayed. Bills, Broncos goes into overtime. And we're anxiously waiting for the game to kick off. Oh, San Francisco, Seattle going to be, heavyweight fight. They're going to be slugging. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Boom. First play, 95 yards, touchdown. And I think collectively we all said, uh-oh. Not to quote Mark Hamill in The Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker, this is not going to go the way you think. And that's what this game felt like. Last weekend, Force Awakens, a great re-entry, Niners playoffs, they get the win. Maybe we're feeling good about things. Maybe this team can actually, continue to just ride that really thin line on the edge of the fence and just tiptoe their way past each opponent. And like The Last Jedi did, it came in and smacked you in the mouth and said, sit down, shut up, and you're not going to like this. And the first play, 95 yards, opening kickoff for Rashid Shaheed. You go back 2 weeks ago. I didn't say it leading into this weekend. I thought it was understood. Don't kick to that guy. I don't know why San Francisco utilizes I'll just call it too wide return man situation. So you have Sky Moore, who's been your best returner in like a decade and a half. You have Brian Robinson, right? They line those guys up wide, whereas Seattle makes sure Rashid Shaheed is the one getting the football. And San Francisco kicks it right to him. He's a speedster. What a great trade deadline acquisition he's been for them. He's been phenomenal on special teams. Utilizing his speed opens up the offense, something San Francisco desperately needs this offseason. Chase Lucas misses what should have been a touchdown-saving tackle, and San Francisco immediately is on their heels, and they're down 7-0. And now you have the inverse of what you did to Philadelphia, where you put Philadelphia's defense and their offense on their heels on that first drive. You shocked them. You made them take a step back and say, whoa, what's happening here? Seattle, at their own place, got the crowd in it on the very first play. It's exactly what you can't have happen. And for how good of a special teams unit the Niners have been all year, they make the first back-breaking mistake, or at least the first kind of chipping away of what could have been a win for them had they played a much better game. And really, even then, it probably didn't change much when it's all said and done. But Seattle now can run the football. They're up 7-0. They can execute their game plan and not have their quarterback with an oblique injury throwing downfield consistently. The one thing San Francisco couldn't do, be down and let Seattle run the football and kind of keep Darnold behind, kind of masked, if you will, in that offense. The next back-breaking mistake San Francisco made, great field position. They start on their own 40-yard line. Josh Myers, I think is his name, Seattle's kicker, has a free kick penalty. Wow, it's a great chance. Short field positioning for yourself. You can answer that call. They get an opening kickoff return for a touchdown. Your offense, Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Ricky Pearsall's back, Trent's back in the fray. Now you can answer the call. You can kind of at least make Seattle believe that, okay, fear San Francisco. 4th and 1. On Seattle's 43-yard line. You want to make a statement, right? You want to continue the drive, put them kind of behind the 8 ball, even things up 7-7 and say, look, we're not going silently in the night, right? That's what we all expected the answer to be, right? Meanwhile, Kyle Shanahan, for whatever reason, and we have a quote here or a comment by Kyle Chipto saying that Kyle Juszczyk 4th down sweep was criminal on Kyle. Yeah. And look, it's not just the fact that it's not the fact on the previous play, the play unfolds. Purdy has a 1st down completion to Juwan Jennings. We're all saying, yeah, conversion. No, refs wipe it away and say timeout was called, which it was. But the fact is, why did it take so long for that to happen? But I digress. It was called at the right time. It's just the play was blown dead after the completion was made. It was odd, but okay, all's fair. San Francisco, 4th and 1, you get a redo. Can you do it again? They do a Kyle Juszczyk speed option into the boundary. So the NFL moves the ball towards the seam or whatever seam your last play was on. San Francisco ran it right the last play. The ball is near the right seam, right? Or close to it. Usually, if you want to run the read option or a pitch play, you run it to the side that's open because there's more space to run. You give the running back, the ball carrier, more space to maneuver. You can give your guys more space to block. It simply just gives guys more room to operate. What does Shanahan do? He does the read option into the boundary side, closest to the sideline part of the field. Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. That's not only bad play calling, but if you're going to make a play like that, at least do it correctly. They didn't do that. The second critical mistake San Francisco made in this game, one on special teams, one on offense. Okay, you're putting your defense now behind the 8 ball, which we obviously know is the weakest part of the team. And okay, San Francisco's defense answers. They're down 7-0. Seattle has the football on their own 43-yard line. They're moving the ball downfield. They get a nice 3rd and 1 stop. D. Winters started this game. Probably shouldn't. He wasn't great, but early in it for sure. Had a big 3rd down stop. They make it 10-0. Okay, bend don't break defense. That was their first drive on the field. Awesome. Okay, the defense is at least, they've come to play at least to begin this game. It's 10-0. Okay, it's not the start you want, but plenty of time, 3.5 quarters left. There's ample opportunity to figure this thing out, to put that behind you, to get the ball to begin the second half. Like, the game's still in front of you. You are not out of things just yet, but soon you will be. San Francisco trailing 10-0, offense needing to answer right here. Catches the ball about his own 42-yard line, falling down via the tackle of Ernest Jones. Ball's ripped out, fumble. And at this point, while I'm sure most Niner fans were upset, as I was, as most Niner fans kind of sat there and just said, I'm nervous. How's this game going to go? Jake Tungus virtually ended San Francisco's season. Now, obviously, it's not just his fault. A lot goes into that, but that was the kind of straw that broke San Francisco's back. When you're down 10-0, you're down George Kittle, you're the guy replacing a Hall of Fame tight end. The last thing you can do is make a nice catch, get a first down, and then fumble the football. And I think it was at this point where I was getting texts. I was texting people. The word faithful was no longer in my mind. It was like, well, this one's over. And you know what's crazy is there was still a little fight left in the 49ers. So they make 3 critical mistakes. Opening kickoff touchdown allowed by Rashid Shaheed. Okay, you're down 7-0. 4th down play call, read option to Kyle Juszczyk. What an idiotic call. Wrong side of the field. Just, wow, you blew that one, Kyle. Then you fumble on the ensuing offensive drive. Niners defense, backed against the wall. Can they get the big defensive stop and maybe spark the offense, keep that Lumen Field crowd, the 12s, out of the game, or at least silent them for a small second, right? Kind of steal momentum back. What happens? Mustafa, big sack, 2nd and 20. Yep, here we go. They're going to answer. Very next freaking play. Not 2 plays later. The very next play, after a sack of negative 10 yards on Sam Darnold, you allow a 21-yard reception to Cooper Kupp towards the left sideline because Green bites on a high-low concept, and you're just like, what else can go wrong? If you chalked up what's the worst way San Francisco can play the first quarter, you saw it on TV tonight. I watched it right there on that television. You saw it. That was the worst first quarter I'm sure San Francisco has had since that Rams game where they were down 21-0. Like, you just saw everything unravel. Okay, so big 21-yard reception. It erases a nice sack by Mustafa to set up 2nd and 20. The next play after that, I believe, they target a receiver deep downfield. Marquis Siegel tackles the wide receiver, gets a PI. Wasn't even looking at the receiver. He just ran into him and tackled him. And it was like, was that game in Philadelphia a fluke? Or is Seattle just so much better than the Eagles are, which I think both those things can be true, right? So a big PI the next play gives Seattle the football right at the goal line, essentially, or in the red zone inside San Francisco's 10-yard line. Then they cut to the sideline, and we have no idea what happened. At least I haven't seen it so far. Shanahan is seen yelling, covering his face to kind of give them some privacy, but like in Renardo Green's face, pointing towards the bench. What we all believe was, they're benching him, which would be, that's Green's 2nd time this year. Go back to that Cardinals game where they won big in Arizona. He was benched then too. So this is not his first instance. And for a second-year player that had a lot of ups and downs this year, that's not a good look. Playoff game, biggest game of the season, your head coach, who we'll get into him in a second because this was a rather bad Kyle Shanahan game, which just sucks. But you have your head coach screaming at you on the sideline, benching you for it seemed like, I don't know, a couple plays or so. It's not a good look. It just kind of was emblematic of how the game was going, right? You come out there, you're hyped up, you're ready to go. All of a sudden, bang, you get smacked in the mouth, and bang, you get shot in the legs, and bang, there's a kill shot right there for your head. And you're like, what do I do? And, to bite on a high-low, it was just bad. There's so many bad things. For as good as San Francisco was against Philadelphia, it was equally as bad against Seattle tonight. So they bench Green. He's out there getting chewed out. They send him towards the sideline, which, funny enough, it wasn't Robert Saleh, which I don't know if that means anything, but it was the head coach. It wasn't Saleh. So either Kyle heard something, saw something, Green came off the field. I don't know what happened. But, they had about, 20-second conversation. I'm sure it was F words and whatnot, and sent him packing for a drive to go think about his life for a second and think about his choices. But 2 plays later, Darrell Luter Jr., who probably wasn't expecting to play much in this game for obvious reasons, gets burnt by Jason in the back of the end zone. Touchdown, you're down 17-0. And San Francisco had some more fight left in them, but this is where I want to pause and talk about Kyle Shanahan. I think Kyle Shanahan deserves Coach of the Year still. I think what he was able to overcome this year, it was just phenomenal. I think the mastery in Philadelphia last weekend, everybody counted them out then, and they overcame. I think the injuries they've dealt with, the personnel problems they've had 2 different left guards. Kittle missed time early, then he got hurt again before this game. Brock Purdy missed time, all that stuff. Like, you guys know the story. You guys watched every single game. You guys know what this team overcame. And I think that all goes into what makes Kyle Shanahan so great. But in this game, this may have been, and maybe it goes into Mike McDonald being Shanahan's kryptonite, and he just not being able to push the right buttons against his defense, which, has gotten so much better the last 3 years. And maybe it's a personnel problem. I'm sure it's a mixture of both, but Shanahan kept pressing the button. It was just nothing can compute with what they wanted to do offensively. This team desperately needs a wide receiver. We'll get to more of that when we look ahead to next year and what this team could do in the offseason. But what I don't like, and it's something you don't often see, but sometimes when things start to unravel, this was the eggshell game, and San Francisco got boiled to bits. There was just eggshell all over the place on San Francisco's sideline, and a big culprit of that was Kyle Shanahan. Again, you can give Kyle his praises for how this year went and how this team could have easily crumbled, but also in the same vein, criticize him for how bad this game was. And to watch your team be down 17-0, you are yelling, maybe justifiably, at your second-year cornerback in Green, a second-round draft pick a year ago, a guy you need to play well in this game if you want any chance to win, to see your offense have no answer for the one drive they had or the 2 drives they had, and to be down, again, nearly 20 points on the road, and all you're doing on the sideline is bitching at the referee for 3 straight drives. They're not the reason you're down 17-0. They're not the reason Shaheed drove 95 yards on the kick return for a touchdown. They aren't the reason Tun just fumbled. They aren't the reason your cornerbacks are getting cooked left and right against that rather mediocre passing offense of Seattle, and you still can't stop the run when you knew Seattle wanted to run the football at the highest rate possible. You were just getting outgunned, brother. Don't go to the refs. Now, I'm not saying Shanahan didn't have a reason to complain when they called timeout on the Juwan Jennings 4th down conversion, but at that point, you got to just let it go. You cannot have a long memory in games like this. Imagine if, and it's the worst possible thing in baseball, when the umpire calls you out in the first inning on a bad strikeout, you don't like to call, and you carry it for 8 more innings, you never let it go, and you get knocked out of the game because of it. Like, Shanahan mentally lost this game on the first play of it. For as dinged up as this team is, for as much as you've overcome, you cannot be that mentally weak in a moment like this. And I love Kyle. I think Kyle's a great coach. I've already told you why he's a great coach. And how much I love him. He's phenomenal in his offensive wizardry, but man, he unraveled immediately. He's out there yelling at the refs, yelling at players, and you're like, where did the guy go from a week ago? When all hell's breaking loose, you lose your all-pro Hall of Fame tight end, and you have to tether things together on the fly and make it work. And you do when it's great. You can't praise Kyle when it's great and not criticize him when things are bad, because Kyle was terrible tonight. Now, I know there's a personnel problem. San Francisco has no wide receivers, which has just sucked. Pearsall had no impact whatsoever. Juwan Jennings was dropping wide open passes for a handful of times in this game. It just was bad all the way around, right? But what I don't want to see is the guy who I'm paying to say, hey, look, we got to find ways to win. And instead of being on the sideline concocting a game plan or going over things with your quarterback, you're out there yelling and complaining to referees. Who cares, brother? Who cares? Now, in the grand scheme of things, you lost by 35 points and you couldn't get in the end zone once. You better in the offseason, for as great as this year was and as magical as it was, you better be in the offseason looking for every single way to beat that McDonald defense. Because right now, the outlook is not good. I need you day in, day out trying to find, I need paralysis by analysis from you, Kyle. Because while I believe in the drafting process and the offseason, things can change so quickly. They can lose guys. Again, it can change so fast. They have your number, and you have no answers. And he's not going anywhere. He is there to stay. Seattle could very much well win the Super Bowl this year. Do what you have never done as a head coach. Do it in your place of all places. And that guy's thinking, Kyle Shanahan, step below me. I got that guy cooked. You have Jim Schwartz in your conference, basically, now in your own division. And I know I'm kind of using hyperbole here, but this is one of the worst performances in a 3-game span by Kyle Shanahan. And they happened against the exact same team, the exact same defense, the exact same head coach, in almost the exact same situation. Do or die, number 1 seed, 6th seed. Do or die, NFC title game, elimination from the playoffs. Now, I'll give Kyle, again, leniency, but I can't have you unraveling on the sidelines as a leader of this team. It's emblematic of what the team will do, which is what exactly happened. Now, I'm not saying it's Kyle's fault. I'm just saying that, in the overarching point of the game, you can't have your head coach doing that stuff. Go back to the drawing board, man. I can't have you, let somebody else scream. let Robert Saleh scream, right? Let Brent Boyer scream. I know he's a head coach. I like that fiery side of Kyle. But when you are mentally frustrated and clearly you don't have an outlet, it does come across as you just whining and complaining because you don't have an answer to fix your questions or you don't have a solution to your problems. So it's blame somebody else. And that's not what you want. And that's not who he's been all year. So it's kind of shocking, but it wasn't good. You have to be better. And now I'm not in that situation or position, but I'm also not paid to be. So, and I probably wouldn't handle it as best. I'd probably shut down and just kind of get quiet. But, you yelling that the refs aren't firing anybody up on the sideline. You getting, say in baseball, you getting ejected is firing nobody up here, Kyle, because you're down 17-0. And that offense, even if they believe they can find a way, they know it's over because we knew it was over. But all that said, you're down 17-0. They're 3 quarters to go. Maybe you can find a way. Maybe you can kind of, kind of compile things together for a drive or two, just make things really close and put some pressure on Seattle. San Francisco drives downfield, gets a field goal. Okay, 14 points, not too bad. Brock Purdy on 3rd and 5 evades 2 sacks, has an amazing cross-body throw to Tunges, which was like, whoa, don't do that. But it worked in their favor. He also missed a big play, again, at the end of the game. Didn't matter at all, obviously. But when you talk about the window San Francisco had being so narrow coming into the game and the window during the game being narrow, this was the moment, and they failed. You're trading, field goals for touchdowns, and you can't do that against this defense. So you're down 17-3. The defense, though, okay, here's your window. Upton and Stout, great coverage downfield, 3rd down stop on a deep ball from Darnold. Awesome. Get the ball back. What do? Seattle gets a punt on the 4-yard line. And trying to move the ball against this defense, 4 yards, 96 yards downfield is basically impossible. I use the analogy in week 18 of a snake suffocating their prey. And this week, I think you can certainly use the exact same analogy, but this just felt like a full frontal attack of like, dude, we know we're better than you. You know we're better than you. So F it. We're going to your quarterback. And we know you don't have the dogs to finish this race. And San Francisco didn't. They try a triple flea flicker. It gets 1 yard. And you just rewind a week in Philadelphia, a big trick play, you get a touchdown of it. It's not going to happen against this defense. And that was, although there were many reasons to believe why they didn't have a chance earlier than that, that was the point where I said, oh, triple flea flickers aren't working against this defense. It's going to be a long night at the office. And San Francisco, they do get a field goal. They salvage the drive. I think one of the biggest missed opportunities in this game was on 3rd and 6, Brock Purdy, who played his freaking heart out tonight. I love Brock Purdy. He's elevated himself into that top 10 quarterback status, obviously, for me. I think he's proven that, at least to most people in the NFL. The effort he gave fighting for, 3 3/4 quarters, whatever it was. Dude was getting hammered and pressured all night long. He had no help from anybody. The exact same thing happened 2 weeks ago. And he was trying his hardest. And he gave San Francisco's weaponry an opportunity. On 3rd and 6, he rips a ball to Pearsall for like 15 yards downfield. Would have gotten them into Seattle's red zone area. And maybe if they score a touchdown there, it's 10-17. You're down 1 score. You got a chance, right? Instead, Pearsall just can't bring it in, barely kind of dove for it. Couldn't haul it in completely. And then they review it. It's no good. You get the field goal. Okay. Like that was like, it felt like you felt like you were flying a kite, right? Okay, it's really windy outside, or there's no wind outside. It's like, why are we doing this? It's like, it's not going to work. And you toss it up, and all of a sudden the big gust of wind comes in. You're like, oh, okay. Like somehow this is working. And the minute Pearsall dropped that football, which was placed perfectly by Brock Purdy, it felt like the wind just went in a vacuum and it was gone. And that was kind of the last opportunity they had to score and put some points on the board. And that kind of is how the 2 games against Seattle have gone down the year, of like, Purdy's doing his darndest. He's putting balls in space. He's layering throws over the middle, and he's giving these guys a chance. These guys just aren't good enough. And, the war of attrition was going to catch up to San Francisco eventually. And I mean, why wouldn't it happen against the number 1 seed and the best defense in your conference? But what's crazy, and I know, again, you lost by 35 points, but I'll keep coming back to it. Like, Purdy put Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, Tunges in opportunities, and none of those guys helped him out. And I know Pearsall's hurt and everything, and I have no idea how that hindered him. I'm sure he wasn't 100%, so maybe that's why Tunges got hurt late in this game, but nobody helped Purdy out. He was a sitting duck, but also kind of a lone wolf, just trying to run around and salvage what he can of every single play. Every offensive lineman sucked today. Trent was bad. Burford was bad. Brendel, oh my God. Brendel, for as good as he was against Philadelphia, shockingly, Brendel didn't just fall face first on a handful of plays. He fell face first into a big pile of dog crap. That dude sucked tonight. And he sucked 2 weeks ago. We all hyped up, oh, Pearsall's back and Trent's back. It'll change things. And yeah, could have had they caught the football, but also had anybody else come to play. Purdy came to play. Christian McCaffrey came to play. Nobody else came to play on offense. Not even the head coach came to play. And that's disheartening. It sucks. It certainly makes me question what next year looks like unless something drastically changes, but that's what happened. And again, that Pearsall drop was their last opportunity. It's an 11-point game. It's 17-6. The ensuing drive for Seattle. Okay. Can the defense continue to kind of pry and kind of start to continue to open that window and make it a little bit ajar where it's not really open, but it's kind of creaked open of like, okay, 11 points isn't 17. It's not 35 as we came to know, but 3rd and 1, the defense gets a huge third down stop. I think it was D Winters. Maybe somebody else flies in, hammers Charbonnet. He gets hurt. And we're thinking, yeah, my wife's in there making butter chicken and naans. And I'm like, let's go, baby. We're going nuts. We're celebrating in the house. And all of a sudden, boop, here comes the flag. And you just said, that was it. Holding call on San Francisco, Jordan Elliott, who probably won't be brought back during the offseason, which, he's a guy who needs other guys around him, but he's been a net negative since Michael and Bosa and those guys went down. Gets called for a really unnecessary holding call, I think, on the center. I know sometimes things happen, but like, dude, you weren't near the play. The center wasn't near the play. What are we doing? The very next play, end around Rashid Shaheed, 30 yards downfield. There's no cornerback. Saleh calls like a kind of a hybrid version of cover 2. Cornerbacks are all towards the middle part of the defense. There's just lanes open everywhere. And that kind of goes into, yeah, you called a shot and you miss, and it happens sometimes. But just being outcoached, and that doesn't say something completely negative towards San Francisco. It really goes into the Seattle Seahawks are coached by Clint Kubiak, who is phenomenal. I don't know why the Falcons didn't hire him. Somebody should. For my sake and my sanity, please take him out of the NFC West. But on both sides of the football, it's just Kubiak and McDonald are one of the best, duos in the league, and it sucks to have to face those guys twice a year, and now this year 3 times, because you get games like this where you're just like, we have no answers for anything. But on the very same drive, okay, can you bend, don't break? This kind of goes into the second play of Darrell Luter Jr.'s night that you just said, dude, what are you doing? 3rd and 10, which again, it's San Francisco's third down defense is somewhat imagine being better on 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 3 than you are 3rd and 10 and 3rd and 12 and 3rd and 15 and 2nd and 20. I don't know why this is the case. Obviously, I'm not in that room and I don't have the all 22 tonight. Kind of feels like you just chalk it up and say whatever type of night and kind of move on. I know I will. But on 3rd and 10, when you have no help in the middle of the defense, the linebackers are playing towards the line of scrimmage. They're rushing the quarterback, trying to get some pressure on him. And then other guys are bailing out towards the sidelines. Darrell Luter Jr. is playing, I'll call it the inside corner on the left-hand side, kind of a quasi-nickel in this case. And your job, knowing that you don't have any help on the interior of the defense, is to shade towards the inside. What does Luter do? Bobo fakes to his right. They just hop, skips inside and catches the ball and runs for about 11 yards for a first down. And it's like, why are you, 1, abiding on double moves on 3rd and 10? And 2, a more egregious error is why are you not shading on the inside on 3rd and 10 when you have no help? And we'll get more into what next year looks like in the offseason stuff soon, but every time San Francisco had a glimmer of hope, it was wiped away by either a mental error, a penalty, or just a lack of ability. And that's what this game comes down to. You get down 24-6. Christian McCaffrey then gets hurt. He misses the first drive of the second half, and it's over. And that's kind of all you can say to kind of recap things, because this was a dismantling by the Seattle Seahawks. This was a complete earth-shattering, Super Bowl hope-crushing defeat at the hands of a team that's, 1, better than you, 2, better coached than you in this game, or at least in the matchup-based department, and 3, has better depth, is healthier, and quite simply, you have no business being in the same conversation as. I still think San Francisco, if fully healthy, okay. Like I told my wife today, we were watching the game again. She doesn't like football that much, so she was in the kitchen making dinner and everything during the game, and as things were transpiring, I told her, well, You'll be happy the season's over. You ain't got to hear me yell and scream at the TV anymore on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays. Like, you can enjoy the rest of your winter. I mean, she knows I'll be in the lab doing draft work, but my point still stands. And she kind of looked at me and said, like, oh, like, she kind of had the empathy and said, I'm sorry. She was, I know you're going to be sad and everything. And I was like, you know what? Like, these games are so much easier to just kind of be like, okay, you got me. Now the team may feel differently, but as a fan, at least, you kind of just say, well, what can we do other than have an offseason to get healthier and better? And I don't know how this team gets healthier. Maybe it is the MFs. Who knows? I don't think it is, but the substation conspiracy theory. But a lot of things have to change. But I also want to point out some good things that happened tonight, because there was so much bad. There's so much to complain about. I'm sure I've missed plenty of it. But I do want to give guys credit, because it's so easy to come on here and be like, oh, well, this was terrible and that was terrible. And it wasn't all terrible. Now, you lost by 35 points in primetime playoff game on the road against your own divisional opponent that can carry it over you for the next year. And if they win a Super Bowl, it's even worse. Fingers crossed the Bears can work their magic against the Rams tomorrow night, and somehow the AFC can fend off the Seattle Seahawks or the Rams in the Super Bowl. But it wasn't all bad. I thought Brock Purdy was awesome. I thought in that first half, with no help, he just kept fighting. He was putting balls in the right place. It's very easy to blame quarterbacks and top tier guys, the face of the franchise, right? Brock Purdy was the furthest thing from the problem tonight. In fact, I think Brock Purdy had the roles been reversed and you gave Brock Purdy that Seattle Seahawks team and that defense, this game probably is 50, 60 points. Brock, to me, is so much more efficient. Obviously, Darnold's hurt, so hopefully he can get healthy. Want no one to be injured. Charbonnet, same thing to him. But like, Brock Purdy was the furthest thing from the problem. He's clearly a franchise quarterback, clearly can elevate this team, did it all year long. I mean, he had nothing to work with for half the season and just found a way. It was the Purdy and Christian McCaffrey show for about the last 7 weeks or so of the season. And it's just, my mind can't even fathom where this team would be without Brock Purdy. I know Mac Jones played great in his absence, but my God, Brock Purdy's awesome. I'm so thankful he's here. Tonight, again, he was making plays with his legs, running around, scrambling. Just, this team had to fight tooth and nail for one single blade of grass. And Brock was always the guy at the head of the pile, trying to push guys around, trying to create something and whatnot. It just, unfortunately, it was for naught. And keep in mind, we forget Brock Purdy has turf toe. And the reason I bring that up is because Brock Purdy traveled 413 yards tonight on 33 dropbacks. 413 yards. Funny enough, you go to the box score in this game, Kenneth Walker, who ran all over San Francisco's defense, only had 116 rushing yards in this one. If you go to the team stats in the game, Brock Purdy ran for 413 yards. That is more yards than the Seahawks had total, 281, and is nearly almost as much, if not more than, both the teams had combined. If you add San Francisco's 236 yards to Seattle's 281 yards, it's around 510 or something like that, 517. Brock Purdy essentially had both these teams combined yardage or a little under that, simply trying to evade pressure and make plays. You cannot function that way. You can't win games that way. And it goes into what we'll talk about towards the end of the show of like what San Francisco has to do better in roster construction going in the next year if they want to have a fighting chance in games like this. Seahawks are going nowhere. This team's here to stay. McDonald's going nowhere. You got to retool some stuff. And look, this year, the Niners, the fan base itself as well, should not hang their head. This team was not supposed to be here. This team was counted out every step of the way. This team was undermanned from week really one on, because Ayuk didn't play. And then Pearsall got hurt week 4, or week 3. Purdy gets hurt, week 1. Like, this team was undermanned all year long from week 1 to week, what is this, 20, 19? And they just found a way to push forward. This season to me is one of the more impressive years I've witnessed covering the team. And a big reason for that's Brock Purdy, but also just so much that went into, like, you lose Fred, you lose Bosa, nobody else comes back from those injuries. Like, my example is the Detroit Lions, decimated by injuries defensively. In the NFC North, not as competitive as the NFC West was, with Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, Aiden Hutchinson, a lot of their guys, although not a lot of them, but their star necessary to win guys were still healthy. And they could not figure it out. Dan Campbell was lost and everything. You lose Ben Johnson, you lose Aaron Glenn. It just kind of always like, whoa, it's too fast for me. The 49ers overcame that. They overcame what a team that had Super Bowl aspirations had. And keep in mind, this was the retooling year for San Francisco. Not to pat myself on the back, because now probably isn't the game to do that. And San Francisco won 2 more games than I thought they would. They did exactly what I said they would in the preseason. I said they'd be 10-7. I was wrong there. They outdid me, which again, wow. They won games they weren't supposed to. They lost some games they probably could have won, but here they are. I said they'd be 10-7 and they'd upset somebody in the playoffs. They did that. And, the unfortunate part is we're never going to get to see what this 2025 San Francisco 49ers team could have been fully healthy. Like, I hate to play the imagine game, the what if game, what could have been game, because why does it matter in the grand scheme of things, right? You lost by 35 points. Who cares, right? Seattle's out there popping, bottles. They're out there with their cigars and everything. Like, they don't care, right? But I just try to reflect, and it makes me almost more sad than losing, imagining this team with the Brandon Ayuk who didn't quit, with a healthy George Kittle for all the season, having a healthy Fred Warner, a healthy Nick Bosa, a healthy Micah Williams, like what this team could have actually done. And they could have still lost, but that's what kind of drags, like, losing doesn't make me hang my head. It's the wondering of the what if. And I'm tired of that. I hate that. It's kind of the every year thing with San Francisco of like, what if they won this game and what if they stayed healthy? And it's like, yeah, but they don't. And they're really good. And when you're really good, that can lead to a lot of great winning. And this year was full of it. But it also leads to a lot of heartbreak. And I can honestly say the biggest heartbreak of this season isn't losing this game. For me, at least. The biggest heartbreak of the season is never truly knowing the potential of a fully healthy 2025 San Francisco 49ers. Because they still would have had holes, sure. They still would have had their problems, guaranteed. But this roster healthy, like, imagine walking into Seattle with Nick Bosa, Micah Williams, Bryce Huff can actually be your third on edge rusher, Fred Warner over the middle. This guy's in the right place, pressing the right buttons. Like, man. And that's what pains me the most. Like, when my head hits that pillow, when I put to rest the 2025 season, I'm not going to think of, oh, you lost against Seattle, it stinks, you didn't score a touchdown. I'm going to sit there and say, man, we'll never know what could have been because we never got a chance to see it. And that to me is the biggest pain. But moving on to some more good things, Jordan James got his first snap of his NFL career on offense, at least in this game. Okay. And kind of had some life to him, kind of had a little bit of pep in his step. Now you don't play for 19 weeks. You better. But I'm eager to see what Jordan James looks like in 2026. Don't know why he didn't play this year. Really, and kind of getting tired of the benching young players because they're not ready when clearly they can help you. Clearly, Jordan Watkins couldn't help you tonight. Jordan James couldn't help you during the year. Marquis Siegel, who was really bad tonight, stepped up big for you last week against Philadelphia. Like, I don't know. It just, this team pressed so many of the right buttons, but on top of that, there's still a lot of lingering questions about Kyle Shanahan, not from a offensive play calling point of view, but it's like, I'm really tired of you redshirting dudes when you need those guys. Jordan James walked into this year not a great draft pick in my opinion, but a B+ one that can help you. You go to his Oregon tape last year, I think all of his touchdowns, I think it was 12, were in the red zone. This team was one of the best red zone offenses in football, but this team couldn't run the football. And Christian McCaffrey had 500 or close to 500 touches this year. You didn't want some fresh legs throughout the season, help make Jordan James or make Christian McCaffrey not feel like he has half of a century worth touches on his legs. Like, my God, he's almost 30. And again, we'll get more into that in a second, but Jordan James, good to see you. Welcome to San Francisco. Wish it was under better circumstances, but okay, cool. You have some wiggle to you. You can squeeze through some tight spaces. He was actually probably San Francisco's most effective rusher today, not named Brock Purdy. Christian McCaffrey got hurt and missed some time, but Jordan James, 6 carries, 28 yards, 4.7 yards a pop. Yeah, that plays. That's the best defense in football with the ferocious front 7, and you had nearly 5 yards a pop against them with this crappy offensive line tonight. That plays in the NFL. I am very intrigued what Jordan James brings to the table, and I know he got hurt in preseason or training camp, and maybe that kind of set him back. But some young guys, got to play. I'm really getting tired of seeing other teams rush out there, first round draft picks, the 6th round draft picks, and have them make impacts. Meanwhile, San Francisco is so reluctant to let young guys play. And I get it. Learn the system, learn the offense, especially on offense. Kyle is more fickle about things like that. But it's like, dude, nobody else is that way. You are the only guy that I know of, at least, that refuses to play rookies unless they're first round draft picks, 2nd round draft picks. And I can't think of an offensive 3rd round draft pick outside of Dominic Puni. I think he was a 2nd round draft pick. Like, this team just doesn't play 3rd round draft picks that can help them at skill positions. It's baffling. And for how bad they were decimated by injuries this year, it's like, dude, you don't want to play Grendo, but you won't even play Jordan James, who's active on Sundays now. So I don't know if that's building towards Jordan James being next year's running back too. But man, and Strawberry says here, Puni and Stout. Yeah, Puni's the kind of the standout here, but Upton Stout's a defensive guy. Kyle don't make that choice. Sala does. And this team didn't have a nickelback coming into the year. So they had to have a guy start day one. And really, Stout earned that job in preseason because they were going to play Trey Brown. Don't forget that. He wasn't the starter. They were going to play Trey Brown out there, and they had other guys in place and whatnot, and Stout beat those guys out. He earned that job. Like, Puni's the only 3rd round draft pick offensively that I can think of they've played in recent years. Ty Davis Price, not one. Jordan Watkins, you couldn't get out there. He's later in the draft, but still. Like, Jordan James, 5th round draft pick, couldn't get out there. Danny Gray couldn't get out there. And these are obvious, like, busts of draft picks, but like 3rd round draft picks don't play in Shanahan's offense unless you're Puni. And it took 2 guards to have Puni play. Don't forget that. He wasn't gifted that job. He had to earn that puppy because guys got hurt. They were not going to play Puni to begin last year. Don't forget that. Like, they just don't play at 3rd round draft picks. It makes no sense to me. And look, and sometimes you're blocked. I get that by other guys in previous years. It's been Debo and Jennings and Ayuk, and there really wasn't a place for 3rd round draft picks at receiver and whatnot. And you had Christian McCaffrey, so whatever. But man, why do other teams 3rd round draft picks get to play? 5th round draft picks play on offense, but I mean, God, it's just baffling that there is a reluctancy to, you drafted guys and you're like, keep them in the shed for a year. No, man, they're going to make mistakes. Let them play. Speaking of young guys being able to play and do some things, how about CJ West? I mean, and really you can add Alfred Collins into this too. I love what San Francisco is doing on the interior. It's just you have two bums in Kalia Davis and Jordan Elliott who can't stop anything. Playing in front of those guys half the time. Alfred Collins is awesome. They're young guys; they'll make mistakes too. But like, man, the future is bright. I got to wear some shades, man. You know, West had a big sack tonight. Again, didn't matter, but I love what West done. And part of me is like, why does it take so long to rely on your guys? There's no reason why Kalia Davis and Jordan Elliott should have started this game for San Francisco. You knew what Seattle wanted to do. And it was like, nope, stick to the script. Stick to the script. The script doesn't work half the time, man. Get guys out there. They lane clog. They stopped the run. And again, tonight's kind of jaded because of what happened, but I like what San Francisco is building on the defense. And you had Mike Hell back in there, hopefully. Stout was really good, and he has been for the last 2 months or so. Like, there's really good signs there for San Francisco. It makes me really excited of what's to come next year. But it's like, I'm tired of waiting for next year for young guys to get a chance. And this was the year, and San Francisco played a lot of young guys defensively, but it's like Jordan James, Jordan Watkins. Why can't they play? And really, I hope Nick Martin can get healthy. I think he has a bright future. D. Winter's job is not safe by any means. I mean, like this team needs that, Will and Sam linebacker spots to be filled. And Nick Martin has a really high potential. He flies around and makes plays. And I didn't love that pick at the time. And I think you can go back and make a better one in retrospect, but I'm still really excited about Nicholas Martin, but he obviously didn't play in this game. He's hurt, and concussions are really scary. But, man, like, you give these guys an offseason, another training camp, barring injury, fingers crossed, without injury, and the Niners have a really exciting defense that they get to add more to, which to me is like that was kind of my whole point of the retooling year for San Francisco of like, you retool, you see what you have, you can kind of look at the promise of what these players can be. Then if they can kind of spark and kind of it clicks late in the year, which it did for Collins and West and Stout, I mean, that's a nickelback and two defensive linemen. And Mike Kell was good to begin the season before the injury of Bosa and Huff there. It's like they're building something, and the building blocks and the cornerstones are getting put in place, but they need more. We know that. They got dog walk tonight. That offensive line in Seattle was awesome. And they aren't even a great offensive line. And Philadelphia, although different offense, is probably a better offensive line personnel-wise. But Seattle just dog-walked those guys. They couldn't get to the edge. These linebackers were terrible. For all the talk of, Michael Kendricks or Eric Kendricks, sorry, and Wallow and Winters, like all those guys were terrible tonight. They couldn't stop the run to save their life, and that's the bread and butter of what the Seahawks do. And, to kind of give more good into what we saw, it's like this team, the last good thing I would say is they have heart. And that's what it takes. Like when it's 41-6 or it's, I don't know, 35-6, whatever it was throughout the game, 27-6, it's very easy to just quit. And they didn't. Now, obviously, you can't do that. It's disrespectful to people around you who can't be out there because of injury, but I don't know, man. Like the Seahawks have every reason to keep their heads high, and the Seahawks have every reason to gloat and be proud because they won this game and they kicked San Francisco's butt. But I have a lot of promise, or at least a lot of I believe in what San Francisco is doing. Now that said, it takes me to the bad stuff because Kyle Shanahan was just terrible. Hot dog flavored water, fourth down read options. And it's not all his fault. I know I'm kind of going hard on him. Nobody can get open. You have Bourne and Robinson and Pearsall, who's hindered in some capacity, and Jennings, and just nobody can get open. It felt like they ran the same play over and over again. They didn't, but it felt that way because they were almost in the exact same position all night offensively. Third and long, third and long, third and long. What do you do? Third and long, the clock's winding down because you're down by 20 points. Got to get to the boundary. And, Seattle said, good luck. Like, if you think about it, the San Francisco 49ers almost had to run the Philadelphia Eagles offense this week trying to play towards the boundary. And we saw how easy it was for a bad defense in San Francisco to kind of pick that apart and win that game. Like, Seattle won this game with ease. They knew it was going to be easy. They knew San Francisco had no fight in them. And it looked that way from the beginning. But again, that kind of goes into a more personnel problem. This team, I think Kyle Chipto said it in the YouTube chat, this team has a Brandon Ayuk-sized hole in it. Now, we know Brandon Ayuk quit on this team. San Francisco may have been looking for a reason to push him more towards quitting, but he's gone, right? And this team misses that player. You can go back to 2 years ago when they drafted Pearsall. You can see the vision of a healthy Pearsall and a healthy Ayuk, what that can do to a defense. And you're like, oh, Shanahan, brain explode, Brock Purdy. Wow. And you're never going to see it. Now, Pearsall is never healthy, and hopefully that can change next year. But Ayuk's gone and done. And this team needs a player like Brandon Ayuk. Now, you don't have to pay him $30 million, but you cannot walk in the next year with DeMarcus Robinson and Kendrick Bourne, and maybe you re-sign Juwan, and then Pearsall and say, that's it, we got it. It's like, no, this team is depleted of passing weapons. Kittle's out for most of next year, not the entire thing. Jennings is a free agent. Ayuk's going to be gone. Pearsall can't stay healthy. Like, your top receivers, again, if healthy again, Pearsall, Robinson, and Jordan Watkins, Sky Moore, Jacob Cowing, who can't be healthy either. Like, this team is depleted offensively. And they're going to have some money to spend. So whether it's Alec Pierce or somebody else, like, this team needs a guy like Alec Pierce. That Colts offense is scary. And I'm not saying it has to be Pierce, but you got to find somebody that can dice up a defense over the middle. And then, you have Pearsall to help you out and everything. And maybe you can add somebody else in there, but like, you got to spend money. And I know that this is the retooling year, so you couldn't expect that to happen, so I'm okay with that. And I understand the thought process behind that. And I can accept what this year was, but this team has to spend some of that money. You're already paying Bosa. You're paying your big guys. The defense is basically set in place. Again, you got to make some additions, but like the basis of that's in place. And we'll get, again, more into that in a second too. Again, I keep saying that, but we are going to get into an outlook for next year and what that can be. But you really got to spend some money, because Seattle looked at you and said, this is your offense? Kendrick Bourne, DeMarcus Robinson. I mean, man, like, this is what you got. Like, take a look at your division. Like, Seattle doesn't have, a bunch of elite dudes. They got JSN, one of the best receivers in the entire NFL. They got Cooper Kupp, a solid number 2 guy. They have their, field stretcher in Shaheed. And they got a bunch of tight ends that can block on the exterior, but one of them can also catch in Barner. And they have Arroyo behind the scenes, who was hurt for most of the season. And they have 2 running backs that can beat you up. The quarterback isn't even mentioned in their offense because it didn't have to be. It's just a bunch of dudes that get things done. And San Francisco has quarterback that can elevate an offense that's bad and was bad offensively, weapon-wise, a lot of the season, but they don't have the dudes. The dogs, if you will. The terminology in the NFL is they have a bunch of Jags, just a guy. And when you have a quarterback like Purdy under contract, I know money gets tight, and you ate dead cap to kind of spend next year. Again, this was the reset retooling season, but you got to find your franchise quarterback who's earned the right and earned that title. You got to pay dudes. Now, I know they paid Ayuk and everything, and that was kind of the plan, but like, that's done. You got to pay more guys. Pay 2 or 3 guys. Go give me 2 or 3 guys for 2 or 3 year deals, and pay them around $10 million a year and say, hey, we got 3 or 4 dudes that can eat. And, Kyle probably shouldn't be so particular in how he evaluates receivers. Sometimes good players are good players, man. And it kind of gets, Shanahan has earned a leash, but like receiver wise, you got to get dudes. Like you got to get receivers for your franchise quarterback, and you got to get running backs to replace McCaffrey, or at least kind of aid him as he hopefully can stay healthy after all the carries he got this year. But if anything, this year as it ends should push San Francisco to say, look, chips are all in. And I think it will, and we'll see how they spend it. But the chips should be in on Purdy. You can get younger on defense all day. Spend money on the offense. Get younger on defense all day. Spend money on receivers and running backs and tight ends and offensive linemen. Pay your offense. Defense can get younger. If you can retain Saleh, and I think they will, I don't think he's going anywhere. At least, with the Falcons hiring Kevin Stefanski, which, what a bunch of idiots. That guy sucks as a head coach. Matt Ryan, what are you doing? Saleh's not going to Las Vegas, in my opinion. The Ravens are probably going to hire Jesse Minter. Saleh's probably safe. At least I hope. But if you can bring back Saleh, just feed him more youngsters and then pay the offense. Fix the offensive line. Get a legit left guard there for Purdy. Like, you got to fix the interior in a big way. Like, spend money there. Like, that to me is what the route to take. It's just a disaster offensively. And Purdy has masked so much of that. I know Mac Jones played good in his absence, but you watched tonight. Like, think of this. The Niners theoretically thought they were walking into this year with Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Juwan Jennings. That's a really good unit if healthy, and if not checked out and or injured, right? They ended the year with Jordan James, Luke Farrell, Demarcus Robinson, and Sky Moore. And there were games this year where, although there was some differences in there, Purdy led that team to a win. Purdy led that exact team to a win against Philadelphia on the road. And it's like, gosh, just help the dude out. He's out there running around like a chicken with his head cut off, and you're like, you gotta give him some help, man. And I know it wasn't the plan for all the bad things that happened to happen, but they got to make wholesale changes to what they do in the offseason and the programs and everything, and how they practice and how they train and the training staff and everything. But kind of got off track there, which I think a game like this going off the rails itself kind of deserves that. But other bad stuff, San Francisco's offensive line, Jake Brendel, you're terrible. You have been. One good game against Philadelphia. It doesn't change that. Better in pass protection than you were in recent years, but my God, turnstile, goodbye. I'm so tired of you. Shanahan talked yesterday or 2 days ago, oh, Jake's one of the best centers in football. No, he's not. We know he's not. PFF can lie to you. The tape doesn't lie. The dude is not good. He hasn't been good for 3 years. Let's move on. I know he's under contract and whatever. Draft the guy. I don't care. Figure it out. He's so bad. They showed a clip of Purdy under pressure, and 95% of the pressures where Jake Brendel turned the wrong way, not helping on stunts and being like, oh, what happened? You happened, brother. You suck. You suck. Now, all due respect, I wish you well, but you suck. No, Burford, left guard, you played better this year. We can bring him back, but don't preach me on Ben Barch next year. Find somebody else. Look at what Chicago did. They signed 3 offensive linemen. They traded for a guy, and they may lose tomorrow too. But man, wouldn't you love all those dudes? Darnell Wright and Jackson and Drew Dahlman. And I'm not saying spend high-end money on dudes. I'm just saying you got to spend some money on some guys. Don't be like the Packers and pay Aaron Banks. That was a good move. But you can't leave your quarterback being like, hey, man, it's up to you. You're treating Brock Purdy like he's Joe Burrow, and even Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Brock Purdy has Sky Moore and injured Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, who I love Juwan. But Demarcus Robinson, Kendrick Bourne, and Jake Tunges, and all these guys, like, this Niners team, it just, for how good they are and were, have so many holes. And it's just like, God. But continuing here on the bad, Darrell Luter Jr. got burnt twice, 2 pivotal plays, 3rd and 10, and the big touchdown. I mean, I know they had hope for you, but I have no hope for you. Goodbye. I think next year is his last year under contract, but like, I think we can collectively say he's not it, and we can say goodbye. Like, you can start losing some of the fluff on the roster, not the fat. The fat was cut this year. You can start losing some of the fluff. Guys that are like, well, he's a camp body at this point. And then Jordan Elliott, kind of already said it, like, what do you offer? You were signed to a 2-year deal to be a free agent. Unless you want to come back for really cheap. He was healthy all year. Okay, that's plus. Fingers crossed that can continue to stay for him. I'm sure he's a good guy. And Elliott actually was really good to begin the season. When San Francisco was fully healthy, he was being a good pass rusher and not getting to the quarterback, but opening up lanes for guys. And he was pretty good for the first 3 weeks. After that, it was like, football is not my strong suit. And everyone's job was harder at that point in time. Bosa goes down, Michael goes down. It just made everyone's weaknesses stand out more. But you can't bank on all of your defensive players being like, my success hinges on somebody else being on the defensive line. Now, Bryce Huff makes sense. He was brought in to be that 3rd down pass rushing specialist, but Samuel Kawanu, depth piece. Okay. Yeturis Matos, terrible. Like, paid $18 million a year to do nothing. Nothing. It just, you can't have. You have your elite guys. I get that. You have the guys you trust, your dogs, your stars. You have some role players, and you got kind of the other guys that filter in there. But like San Francisco, their defense had so many role players on it that if that guy didn't play, XYZ guy didn't play, well, then I can't have success. Why? Because it's based on or hinging on him being out there. It's not going to cut it. You saw what Seattle did. Rushed forward and got home almost every single time. Purdy in the 3rd quarter was pressured 13 times, and the game had a quarter and a half to go or whatever. And I'm not saying you have to build what Seattle built. It'd be nice, obviously. But you run different defenses. Maybe that changes if Saleh goes. Again, I don't think he will. And Shanahan seems like so hinged or kind of attached to the wide 9, cover 3, which maybe you don't do anymore. I don't know. That's probably not going to change. But you can't have, Seattle has 6 dudes deep on the defensive line. Lawrence, Murphy, Uche, Owe. You can just, Mafe, you can go all the way down. Byron Murphy. You can just keep counting dudes, and you're like, where does it stop? And that's built over time and with good drafts. And San Francisco, I think, did have a good draft this year, and so maybe that changes. But you got to let dudes like Kalia Davis and Jordan Elliott go to find some actual guys, because what do they offer you other than a body that can remain healthy for somewhat of a full season? So, my last bad before we get into next year, which kind of already hinted at things. Luke Farrell, we talked about this coming into this week, that without George Kittle, my big concern was blocking with Luke Farrell. Luke Farrell was terrible when Kittle got hurt early in the year. So what, weeks 2 through 6, 7, whenever Kittle came back, he was terrible. And they paid him the big money. He was like the marquee free agent they signed. It was Mac Jones and Luke Farrell and Demarcus Robinson. Luke Farrell has been terrible. And he was better last year, so you kind of can give San Francisco some leeway and say, well, the optics were good. And there was some signs of some offensive prowess that they can take advantage of. And no, none of it happened. That dude didn't take a step back. That dude stepped 4 steps back and said, I don't know which way's up. It was like this an escalator down. And it was like, wait a minute, how did I get here? And I think a lot of fans will point to tonight, and I will as well. Purdy throws a pick, and again, can't even blame Purdy. He's just trying everything to find guys open. Purdy probably wasn't the best decision at that point in time, but like Farrell is in contested coverage, and he's like kind of like limp arms the ball. Like he just limp dicks the ball. Okay, I'll try. Like, what is that? You're in a playoff game, dude. I know the score's out of your control and you can't change things, but like, talk about giving up. That dude gave up. And there's an out in his deal. Sayonara. See you later. Goodbye. Never going to see you again. Have fun in Cancun. Never come back. What a bust. What a bust, man. It's just like, you don't fight for the football. You don't give the effort you want. You miss blocks left and right. There were so many kickoffs tonight that you look at Luke Farrell, and I'm sure it's happened all year. And I know sometimes blocking can be kind of, you can see, one bad block and you go, oh, that guy's terrible, when he actually had 5 good blocks before that. Luke Farrell blew like 17 blocks on kick returns tonight. And Seattle had plenty of them because it kept scoring on your defense because your offense couldn't put any points on the board. Luke Farrell was just letting dudes go by him on kick returns. No effort. And if I'm San Francisco, I'm going to the tape and I'm saying, we signed this guy. We signed this dude. Gotta go. Got to go. He sucks. And I hate being that hard on guys because I'm not in the trenches. I don't know what it's like. And I don't like saying dudes suck. But when you've been bad for the whole season, when you're asked to step up in the absence of the superstar, well, the expectation shouldn't be you'll be that kind of player. You at least give the effort of like, okay, I'll give it my best chance. Luke Farrell said, I don't even have a best shot. What can I offer? Nothing. Like freaking Eeyore, just like, oh, why bother? Like, bro, it's a playoff game. Purdy's out there getting killed, and you're just like, oh, go ahead and sack the quarterback. Get my franchise quarterback killed in Lumen Field tonight. Let him run 415 yards. What do I care? Let Sky Moore and Brian Robinson have nowhere to go on kick returns. And Brian Robinson also shouldn't be on kicks, but that's besides the point. But like Luke Farrell, like I'm not one to point out one player and just be like, that guy shouldn't have a job. Luke Farrell shouldn't have a job, at least on this team next year. Go to Philadelphia, go to Kansas City, and somehow be an all-pro. I don't care. I'll run the risk, brother. I'll take that chance. There's an out in your deal. You can find a blocking tight end from like Northern Dakota, South Iowa State, I don't know, Municipal County College Jail that can block better than that guy. I've seen women at the Waffle House block better than that dude. I mean, you tell my wife, and I love her to death. You tell my wife, hey, can I have a bite of your waffle? You get in the business. Luke Farrell was like, hey, brother, come on in. Welcome home. You want a bed to stay? I'll make you some nice hot cup of coffee, and I'll make you some eggs and bacon in the morning. You can be in the backfield all night long. Like, what the hell was that, man? Gotta go. Gotta go. Give me Tungus. Give me Kittle. Give me Braden Willis. I don't care. Just not Luke Farrell. What a waste of money. Like, this team had very little expenditures this year. And you spent money on that guy. Meanwhile, Eric Saubert, the guy he cut last year, the guy he let go, and he wasn't good either, he's out there just freaking dog walking your safeties downfield. And you're like, where was this Eric Saubert last year for San Francisco? And Eric Saubert fits your scheme. That was probably a good signing last year. And he wasn't good for you. I don't know why. He goes to Seattle, gets cut, gets brought back, gets cut, gets signed to an extension. That dude's out there dog walking your linebackers, your defensive ends, downfield 5 or 10 yards. go get that guy back. And now you can't, but it's like, it's, I don't know. Football is funny to me. You can see a guy play great on somebody else's team and go, wow, you're going to be awesome on our team. Let's sign you to a big deal or, somewhat of a nice deal. They get there and they're just, but yes, Luke Farrell has to go. Okay. Now's probably the time, an hour and 20 minutes, and I should ask you guys to like, share, and subscribe. But we're not done yet. So we have to keep going. So like, share, subscribe, vent your comments down below, vent your comments in the chat. Mick, I see you in here. Kyle Chipto, Kim. I know I haven't been talking to you guys that much today, kind of venting on my own. Strawberry asks here, you think the Colts are just going to sign Pierce? I hope not. Who knows? They don't have a lot of money to spend, I think. So we'll see. They're paying Sauce Gardner now. You're paying Mooney Ward. You're paying DeForest Buckner. You got to pay Daniel Jones. Pierce could easily be a casualty, if you will, of the cap. So, we'll see. I hope not. I would love the San Francisco to get him. My biggest fear is that you see Mahomes and everything, and you see teams like that. Maybe they target him. Joseph Ehrenberg says here, because Kyle, being Shanahan, likes his toys too much, referring back to why third-round draft picks don't play or why offensive skill position draft picks don't play as much. Yeah, Kyle seems to be and this is probably a good analogy. I'm not full of them very much, so this probably stick out. It's just like Kyle is the guy that likes to collect cars, but never drive them. He's a guy who, I'm gonna polish my Lamborghini. I'm gonna polish my Ferrari, but I'm gonna keep it covered up in the garage. Brother, no one knows you have a Lamborghini or a Ferrari unless you take it out of the garage. They're just covered up. And it's just like, like, brother, like, my mother had a friend, very rich friend. She had a Porsche, and we were over there one day, and she wouldn't even let me breathe on it. I said, lady, it's breath. You can wipe it off. But like, Kyle is that protective of rookie wide receivers, running backs, of like, don't touch it, I swear. Or like, stop, I'm doing something. What are you doing? Polishing the tires? Getting a new paint job for guys you're never going to use? And maybe that changes. Watkins, I think, has a bright future. I think he can be a good player for San Francisco. Jordan James, obviously, I think, has some burst to him. We saw tonight, but it's like, I don't want I don't want a car polishing head coach when he drafts players. I want a guy to say, hey, fire that bad boy up and let's get to going. We got a road trip to take in this thing. I think it's Jesus here says, the Niners were really a 7 to 8 loss team that happened to make the playoffs. I mean, you can argue that with the injuries they had. Yeah, probably so. But, that's what makes Brock Purdy's performance so spectacular. That's what makes going into Indianapolis and winning that game, albeit Daniel Jones is out, but you stopped Jonathan Taylor. And you beat the Bears, who are probably a better team than San Francisco is. They're healthier for sure. They have a more ball hawking defense. They can get turnovers. They're more veteran led on that side of the football, and they have better offensive weapons. Like, would I say San Francisco's an 8 loss team? I mean, yeah, but I think the best way to put it is most teams are 8 loss teams unless they have a franchise quarterback. And San Francisco has a franchise quarterback that can elevate them from an 8 loss team to a 12-win team. And now it's up to front office to go out there and buy some pieces and help them take some pressure off their shoulders, but also go from a 12-win team to maybe a 14-win team in a year. And that's a big ask, and I wouldn't expect that. But yeah, third place schedule again. So like, why not? And it'll be tough. It's not like you're going to have a cakewalk. You have the Rams and you have the Seahawks, 4 times in a season, and the Cardinals, if they can push the right buttons, they have a nice team, nice roster. They're just really young and lack direction. And you'll probably play Detroit next year. I don't know what the schedule is exactly, but you're going to play some tough teams. But sure, if you want to say San Francisco is probably an 8-loss team, yeah, but you have Brock Purdy, so it changes things. Same thing goes for Mahomes and Josh Allen and teams like that. Like, it's like you have great coaching and you have a great quarterback. That's a big difference maker in a lot of games, and certainly was this season. Moving on, though, into a part of the show, which I didn't think it'd take an hour and 25 minutes to get into, but this is the last game of the year, so why not? The Niners 2026 offseason plan. Season's over. So now what? It's a big question, right? I know we're all kind of still reeling and sulking and everything. And we're all kind of sitting here like, yeah, this loss sucked. And, you walk into an offseason that has some uncertainty around it. And the one thing every fan base that doesn't win the Super Bowl has is hope that things can change or there can be improvement some places. And I think San Francisco is in a really good spot to capitalize on this year. 12-win team, you want a playoff game. Philadelphia can't say that. Kansas City can't say that. Detroit can't say that. Minnesota can't say that. Josh Allen and the Bills can't say that. Bo Nix can, then he broke his ankle and he's not going to play the rest of the year, which my heart breaks for Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga and Jones and McGlinchey. Like, I wanted Denver to win the whole thing if San Francisco couldn't. Now my mind shifts towards the Texans, which you want about. Give me the Houston Texans against the Seahawks, and my money's on the Houston Texans winning that game. But I digress. So it's a while away. I probably won't even watch the next 2 weeks football because why should I care? But anyways, what is the offseason plan? What do the San Francisco 49ers have to do to build upon what I would say is a successful 2025 season that has plenty of room to grow, a lot of areas to get better at, but also some places that you do have to make some critical and strategical changes if you want to find yourself winning games 41-6 instead of losing games 41-6 in the playoffs. The first thing San Francisco has to do, which may be out of their own control, find a way to retain Robert Saleh no matter what. Again, I don't think San Francisco loses him. I think that there are many head coaching openings, but none of them really fit Robert Saleh. Some of them maybe are going for offensive-minded head coaches. I didn't think Kevin Stefanski get a head coaching job, but here we are. And I don't know where Saleh ranks on the, say, tier maker of head coaching candidates. I don't think he's very high. I don't think he's very low. Do I think you can upgrade over Saleh? Sure, but Saleh is a darn good coach that you saw get the best out of a defense that didn't have basically all their players. For as much credit as we give Shanahan, Saleh should be there too. Like, the Niners, besides tonight, were the best coach team all year long. They really were. And that goes without saying why. Although I said it plenty of times tonight, so maybe it doesn't, but maybe if some guys leave, like Jim Schwartz, Cal Chipto says Jim Schwartz here, that'd be great. I don't think that will happen. The Browns are kind of in flux. I think maybe the Browns, I could very easily see them promoting Schwartz to head coach for a year and just say, like, stabilize us and let's give us another year to kind of reset things cap-wise and roster-wise. But yeah, I mean, I think San Francisco, where they're at now, needs to do what it takes to bring back Saleh. On top of that, though, you keep him for a second season. I know it's kind of I don't love the fact the NFL gives third-round draft picks to teams that lose coaches of color. It just seems odd to me, but I know the reason behind it. But we're here, and, it feels kind of icky in an odd way, but that's the rule, and so take advantage of that. Saleh has to stay here for 2 years to gain third-round draft picks. So if he stays for an extra year, it benefits San Francisco down the road. And so do what you can to retain him, give him a raise, promise him something else. I don't know. Promote him to assistant head coach. I have no idea. But give him a stake in Leeds. I don't care. You have to do what it takes to bring back Robert Saleh. He did the Lord's work on that defense, which had no business being in plenty of the games they were. And we talked so much about how bad they've been this year, but they were also the last line of defense for many of their wins, and it worked out in their favor. So, and he's so respected there. The last thing you want to do is lose another coordinator for the third straight year. You lose Ryans, you fire Wilkes, you fire Sorensen, and Saul is gone. So you have 4 coordinators gone in 4 years. You want to keep some continuity with what you're trying to build. And so I think have Saleh here, give KJ Wright, give Gus Bradley, if he stays, 1 more year under Saleh. Maybe he'll take off. You can find your internal replacement then. But I would do what it takes to bring back Robert Saleh. The second thing, these aren't in order by importance, but that is the first thing I do. The second thing I do is wake up and fix the offensive line. Trent's 37 years old, I think, next year. If not 37, he's 36. I'm 29. I ache and quake, and my back hurts and everything. I can't imagine how he feels. He's getting injuries he's never had before. He's 36. I'm not saying find the next guy. I think Trent can play for as long as he wants to. He was good, great this year for a long time. Might be an all-pro. He deserves so much flowers, good at things out. Trent's awesome. He's a cornerstone guy. But you got to help out your cornerstone Hall of Fame left tackle. He's getting older. At some point, Father Time going to come knocking. And it may be a slower knock. It may be a knock, then a knock. It's not. It doesn't have to be quick, but it's going to come. No one can outrun Father Time. And so while he's in place, find a left guard. Find a new center. Pooney's fine. McKivitz is fine. He's re-signed to a deal. I like that. I like having your tackles in place. And really, I think a lot of my disdain towards Kyle really isn't tackles. It's the interior of the offensive line. There's never addressing things there. You had a UDFA and Brendel get brought over from Miami because Chris Forrester was snorting coke in that team and said, that guy works out for us. You plugged him in. He was good for a year. He hadn't been the same since. Right? Pooney is a good young player going into year 3 next year. He wasn't healthy to begin the season, and he kind of got better as the year went on. Had a bad game tonight, but I think a lot of that goes back to Brendel being so bad. Give me a real center. Give me a cornerstone center, whether it's the draft, whether it's free agency, and we'll see how the year goes. We don't know exactly what free agency classes look like now and the markets look like, but dude, make a trade. You have to find something. You cannot have a Walmart greeter being like, welcome in to your quarterback's pocket because Brendel's that, and you don't want that. And if you don't do that because you love Brendel so much, which is a head scratcher, you have to improve left guard and give me a really solid left guard. San Francisco has never had that dominant left guard. But on the offense, the running game can work really well. It's Aaron Banks in his prime, which wasn't very long, but it worked out for a year in 22 and 23. You had Laken Tomlinson for a couple of years in 2018, 2019, and 2021. You have to find that left guard. And Spencer Burford, for as good as he was in pass protection at times this year, he's not a run-blocking left guard. He's a left tackle body, or he's a tackle body playing left guard that is in the first season of playing left guard. And while there's promise there, you cannot walk in the next year with Ben Barch and Burford and Connor Colby saying, we did it. No, you got to give me more there. There's a reason why the run game struggled so much. Christian McCaffrey, 1,000 yards. It took him 300 carries to get there. Why? The offensive line wasn't good. So that is my second step. And we'll get more into that as the offseason goes along, but it's a really big thing. It's why you see teams like the Seahawks, who finally addressed the offensive line for the first year, be able to run for 5-6 yards a pop on teams. And you saw tonight, and you saw it the last couple of weeks against San Francisco. They're hitting corners, and they got 7 yards to cut back, and there's no one. Because the offensive line's the big tidal wave wiping out entire defensive lines. And they've found that success against Carolina, who's a good defensive line, in San Francisco, and it'll probably continue. But you want to establish Kyle Shanahan football, got to improve the offensive line, especially on the interior. The next thing, it's not like a dire need, but you have to find a legitimate number 2 running back to help Christian McCaffrey. And Brian Robinson, I don't think was that. Jordan Mason wouldn't have been that either. This team needs to find the next dude. That's really hard. You don't find those guys, usually like the elite dudes, the Bijan Robinsons in the first round, the Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round, but you can find legitimate ball carriers, guys that can give you 100 carries a year. Meanwhile, San Francisco's like, nobody carries the ball unless it's Christian McCaffrey. And it's, I get it. You don't want to take that guy off the football field, but he touched the ball like 450 times this year. At some point, something's going to give out. And that's not me wanting it. That's just me saying science is science, man. Your body gives out eventually, right? From exhaustion or whatever. And he's had, PCL injury, he had the Achilles stuff. And Christian McCaffrey was healthy all year. It was awesome. You saw the impact he had. And you fix the offensive line, and maybe you see more explosive Christian McCaffrey next year. But the odds would say you put that much tread on tires, it's going to run out, or there'll be more wear and tear, and sometimes a tire pops and whatnot. San Francisco, I think, needs to adapt, needs to really kind of mold their running back room. Yeah, behind your superstar, fine, and Christian McCaffrey, but what is Seattle doing? Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, two dogs that fight for contact, that have bursts, that have speed and whatnot. What is Atlanta doing? They got their Christian McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson, but they also have Tyler Algier behind them that is just a freaking dog hedgehog that just runs over dudes. What's Detroit doing? And maybe this year wasn't the best example of that, but you have Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. You have Sonic and Knuckles, right? That's their nicknames. Like, one of the why you have your big boom and your speed. You have your thumper. San Francisco needs that thumper to alleviate the pressure off Christian McCaffrey's legs in between tackles. And that, to me, although isn't a big need, you still have a need there. Whether it's free agency, David Montgomery, I think, maybe wanting out of Detroit, so why can't he come to San Francisco? Now, I know maybe paying for an RB2 isn't the wisest decision, but I mean, neither is running Christian McCaffrey into the ground and not trusting guys behind him when you draft, right? You don't trust Jordan James, you don't trust Robinson, you don't trust Grendo. I mean, go find someone you do trust that you believe in, and McCaffrey can be the wide receiver and everything. And we have a couple comments here saying Mason for the Vikings had nearly 1,000 yards. Sure, but yeah, I mean, I'm not saying Mason's bad, but Jordan Mason had an opportunity here in San Francisco and he folded it, and he kind of fumbled it. He literally fumbled it against Arizona on the goal line. So, like, I think San Francisco has to get younger. I think San Francisco, has to continue kind of that roster turnover in a smart way. And I like Jordan Mason. I'm not trying to come for you or anything. I'm just saying, like, you got to find a legitimate guy behind him that not only can, you don't have to give me 1,000 yards, but can you give me 120 carries, 100 carries a year? Let CMC be that slot receiver. And maybe if you don't want to pay for an Alec Pierce and you want to pay big money, let CMC be that guy on the outside. He can do that for you. And Strawberry React says, Breece Hall. I mean, I love Breece Hall, but I think he's a former first-round draft pick, and the Jets don't seem open to letting him go. They could have traded him for a third-round draft pick this year, and they said no. So I would love Breece Hall. You get Purdy and Breece Hall back together. Hall seemingly found his groove in the NFL this year. I'd love that. But it's not going to happen. But I just think, like, if McCaffrey, like, the Niners have to find some explosiveness on the ground. They didn't have that. Now, I think, again, fixing the offensive line will do that and at least aid them in that pursuit. But James can maybe give you that. But the hope was Grendo could, but he's locked in a cellar somewhere. Can't even be active. And maybe that's a good decision. But I'm looking for explosiveness. And this team needs to draft the running back they believe in. Because I'm not going to put it out there, but at some point, Christian McCaffrey is not going to be Christian McCaffrey anymore. And there are already some folks that believe he already isn't Christian McCaffrey right now. And I think a lot of that is the offensive line problem, but there's reasons to believe that a 29-year-old running back that has 450 carries under his belt this year or touches this year is probably going to slow down the following season. So that's one of the next things. Fourth on my list is you got to sign 2 to 3 guys that can separate. Then got to be big names. Just got to find guys that can separate. Kind of already hit on this. Alec Pierce being a big one. And maybe Tyreek Hill gets released and you can get some speed in your offense. I don't know. You got to find guys that can separate. You miss Brandon Ayuk. Pearsall wasn't healthy all year, wasn't healthy today. You got to have that archetypal wide receiver in your system to have it help operate. You saw everything is so condensed and stuck in the middle and nothing can open up because you don't have that guy on your offense. So sign 2 to 3 guys that can do it. Maybe it's one guy. Maybe it's signing one guy and drafting one guy. I don't know. But if you draft that guy, better play him. And so that is the fourth thing. The fifth thing, it's smaller, but I think if you're going to lose Jordan Elliott, which makes sense, and you can't really trust Clea Davis, but you love the run-stuffing ability of West and Collins, go give me a pass-rushing interior offensive lineman. Now, Michael was supposed to be that before the injury, and so maybe that's kind of the addition they believe in. But you tear your ACL and you had an ankle injury a year ago. It's 2 lower body injuries you don't want to talk about that are starting to kind of make themselves known. And I don't think Michael's injury prone by any means, but those are serious injuries. And so I think continuing to kind of turn the leaf over and, like I said, pay for the offense, draft the defense, right? I think drafting a couple guys on the interior will help a lot. This team misses the Buckner role. This team misses what they believe they were getting in Javon Hargrave. And I'm not saying pay those guys. They've seemingly tried to, and it's been a bust, and Ken Law involved in there. But, I believe in this regime a little bit more now than maybe I should in drafting with the way the class played this year. But you got to continue to add. You got to be 5 guys deep on the interior. They were really thin there entering the year. Now it's time to kind of dive into the deep end and say, hey, we're finding dudes and whatnot. And again, we'll get more into that in draft season and everything and who they can sign in for agency, but continue to flush out the defensive line. This team is better when they have 8, 9 guys that can get to the quarterback and aid themselves. 2021, 2019, there's a reason why we love those defenses so much, because they're 8, 9 guys deep. And San Francisco this year was, 3 guys deep, which won't cut it. We had the worst pass rush in football. You got to add. They're probably going to add there. But I don't want them to rest on, Bosa's back and Michael's back and everything's fixed. It helps a lot, but not everything's fixed. The next thing. I love Upton Stout. I have a lot of questions, though, about Renardo Green and Deommodore Lenoir. Now, Lenoir is more proven than Green and everything, but they really struggled at times this year. And I think finding a legitimate number 2 cornerback would help. Now, maybe that is just a year 3 of Green and Lenoir together. Maybe it all clicks, and maybe it's more goes into getting a safety help up top behind those guys, which maybe you can kind of combine these 2 goals of fix your secondary as a whole. Seattle, and I'm using them more because we played them tonight and lost, but they have a bunch of big-bodied cornerbacks and it's different defense, but big-bodied dudes that are physical and they tackle and they're aggressive and they're almost like linebackers playing cornerback. They're just a little thinner, but they're all 6 foot. They got long arms. It's just you can't get away from those guys. And I don't mind San Francisco having undersized players, Stout, Lenoir being kind of the 2 obvious ones there. But, you got to find, in my opinion, the best Niners secondary was Sherman, who granted was elite for 1 year with them. But also, they were best when they had that roaming nickelback, yes, but also free safety Jimmy Ward. And I don't think Siegel is that. I think there's a high upside there, or higher upside for sure. Going into year 2, guys should get better and progress in their sophomore seasons, but you got to find that roaming free safety. I know price may matter and everything, and we'll see again how the offseason goes, but like, start making calls, man. Like Minka Fitzpatrick, maybe, and maybe that's a bad idea. I haven't looked into his tape exactly, but he can be had. And you just got to find those guys. Like, look at Philadelphia. They had Mitchell and DeJean, but they also had Makubu, who got hurt. Like, San Francisco desperately needs that roaming free safety to help let Mustafa come down in the box and make plays, and let Stout and those guys make plays towards line of scrimmage. But also it aids their linebackers in coverage too. I think San Francisco, to fix the secondary, needs that roaming free safety, which you'd love Caleb Downs. He's not going to be there in the 20s, but that would be great. But about a Julian Blackmon off an injury, right? He's in Gus Bradley's system, Indianapolis. He got hurt this year. Maybe call the Saints and see what they say. Or if he's a free agent, say, hey, what's up? Like, why not make that deal? There's safeties will get moved and signed. They do all the time. Like, it's a rather volatile position. A lot of turnover there. Find a guy you like and figure it out. It's not Justin Simmons. Don't say it. But that to me is a big ask. You can't toss out Jair Brown and Siegel and Mustafa and Pinnock and say, okay, doing it again. It's not going to work. The last thing, though, and it goes more into the Luke Farrell situation. Cut Luke Farrell, say goodbye, sign and draft a tight end. Now, maybe this kind of goes into getting pretty more offensive weapons and the receiver conversation, but go sign Kyle Pitts, maybe. Go sign Tyler Higbee for a cheap deal and kind of just get some guys you can trust. There's more out there, but also draft guys too. Like, you got to find the next wave of offensive players. Like, you got to think the entire crop of offensive players that were the core of the last run they had. Debo gone, Ayuk gone, Kittle out for the season next year. Christian McCaffrey, yeah, but like, he's older now. Like, you got to find the next crop of young offensive players to help carry you and allow your franchise quarterback to pick you up. Mekhi Lemon from USC would be great. We'll see how the draft goes and everything. But like, if you don't want to spend a first round draft pick on a guy, you got to spend some money. And so those are my kind of like, you got to do these things in the offseason to fix your team. Bring back Salah at all cost, or invest in the interior of the offensive line, find a legitimate running back number 2. I don't know who that'll be, but again, we'll dive more into things as the offseason comes along. Sign a couple receivers, draft a couple receivers that you can play and believe in, and Shanahan's not going to say, oh, he's in my garage. No one cares, Kyle. Let him out to play. You also got to find and add and replenish your interior defensive line pass rush. Find a cornerback too, or a safety up top, preferably a safety up top to help alleviate some pressure of getting beat deep downfield by your cornerbacks, and have guys that can cover JSN and Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. You got to score points in the NFL. San Francisco has a quarterback and the coach that can do that. You got to get a defense that can also stop the other offenses too. So it's a lot, but I think it's all doable. And I know San Francisco lost tonight and we're all upset, or we're all kind of reeling in the loss and everything. But, sometimes it's really easier, or for me, it's easier to lose 41-6 and sit here and say, oh, we almost had them 26-23. And it's like, oh, we won that one play. And then it's kind of like, yeah, you got our butt kicked, but we move on, right? Season's over now. And the question isn't, how do you sulk and, what's your beer you're going to drink the next day? It's how do we get better? I think what I laid out for you and what I will hopefully lay out for us further into the offseason can actually kind of give us more concrete plans and kind of a path the offseason should take as we near the end of the 2025 season. Niners lose 41-6 in the divisional round against the hated Seattle Seahawks. The Rams and Bears play tomorrow to see who faces off against them at Lumen Field next weekend in the NFC Championship game. Meanwhile, the San Francisco 49ers will hop on a plane and head back to Santa Clara tonight or tomorrow morning and start the off-season process by probably going to Cancun, but hopefully that also entails finding ways to get better. It was a good season. Don't hang your head. 12-5, nearly had the number one seed in the NFC, almost inches away, maybe not an inch, but 35 points away, 36 points away from having the return of Fred Warner. And while next year won't be easy, Kittle's out for most of it, a lot of promise, a lot of good things to be happy about. And I think a lot of them will help carry us into the offseason with hope and optimism, because I believe in this regime, this coaching staff, and in this front office, maybe less or so them, but I do believe in them to kind of steer the ship and continue steering it in the right direction. And hopefully, while this year was more of a tepid, kind of neutral, kind of coasting pace, if you will, of the offseason, this offseason coming up in 2026 can be an aggressive full frontal attack and helping improve this team on all facets, in all phases, in all levels of the offense and defense. A lot to like. San Francisco is not far away. Today feels that way. We lose by 35 points, but I'll tell you this, man, they are not that far away. Maybe you got to get rid of the substation, fix the EMF levels. Who knows? I don't know what all the answers are, but tonight I think I can kind of provide us some as we go forward in the offseason. So, sucks to lose this way, but I'm happy you were here for a lot of it. This, I think, is my fifth year covering the San Francisco 49ers, not full time, but as much as I can. You guys continue to make it one of the best. This was our biggest growth for the YouTube podcast, hoping to kind of grow the podcast audio version even more so next year on the YouTube as well. Hoping to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of the month, if not by the end of the actual season, exiting the Super Bowl. But thank you guys so much for watching, listening. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow us on social media at 49ers.access is the Instagram, 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. If you want to go to a concert, MLB's around the corner. Football is still somewhat happening with the playoffs in full swing, also nearing their end in the next 3 weeks or so. If you want to go to any event, go to SeatGeek.com and use our promo code 49ERSAccess, 49 ERS, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com. Words are hard. You'd think I know my own promo code by now, but 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Niner season is over. It stings. It sucks. But hold your chins high. It was a fun season nevertheless. That said, my name is Sterling Bennett, signing off for the last time of the 2025 season. But now we enter in 2026. And the offseason comes. It'll be exciting. Plenty of content coming your way. Not sure exactly what, but it'll be a lot. And I hope you guys will stay tuned for it as we grow this thing out here on 49ers Access. With all that said, thank you so much for watching, listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. And as always, until next time, stay faithful.